time to turn it on.
After years of putting this off and thinking it probably wasn't a good idea, and probably in my own mind assuming that it wasn't going to be something that would do well on YouTube just because I'm a foul mouth, you're still going to be able to hear my foul mouth most of the time on the audio page of the podcast. If you're unfamiliar, in 2017, summer 2017, I started a podcast called the Heartgod Media Podcast. It's mostly horror film, action movies, 80s teen comedies, sex comedies, like all the great stuff, the genre film that's very specific and to a niche audience of people like myself, people that have listened to the podcast over the last almost 9 years. So why start a YouTube channel? Great question. I feel like there are great stories that have been told on the podcast, which started in 2017. It was called the Heartgod Media Podcast, later switched to the Sight and Sound Podcast. That was named after my very first mom and pop video store that I went to and rented VHSs at. That later closed and turned into a different one, but that was where my love of video renting started. If you've listened to the podcast, you know the origin story about growing up, didn't have everything, but definitely always had HBO, Cinemax, Showtime, things like that. Always had those, and it opened my young eyes in the early mid-90s to a lot of great films, a lot of bad films that are great, horror, action, sci-fi, comedy. And not the comedy that hits, is the huge blockbuster comedies, or, not the obscure comedy. The comedy is where you find a movie, and then you tell your friend about it, and then it literally is ingrained in you from that moment on. The jokes, things like that. Big time with horror. Horror is what the podcast was founded on. It was off the deaths of George Romero in July of 2017, and the one, the only, Toby Hooper, passed away, I think 3 weeks later, a month later, I think a month and a few days later, month and 10 days, I don't know. I think late August, he passed, about a month after George, and I was like, having conversations with friends. We have a tight-knit group of big horror fan friends, and we were having the conversations we always have. What's your top 5 Toby Hooper movies? What's your top 5 Wes Craven movies? What's your top 5 George Romero movies? And those are the big 4 of horror. That's what the podcast really started out, is our love for all things horror, crazy B movies that you've barely heard of or never seen or only saw the VHS covers, but mainly it was all started on our love for the big 4. Now, granted, there's a million other directors in the horror genre that are amazing, but the big 4 are so important to myself, my friends, and the podcast that started and grew in 2017. It stayed pretty punk rock. Never done advertising. I never really did anything to grow the page other than just, if you wanted to listen to it, have fun. I never took it too serious. That's not to say that it wasn't important. It was. But I think YouTube provides a wider audience, and obviously the video aspect. The video aspect, I think, is fun. I'm not, maybe 15, 20 years ago, I would crave the camera. I'm a little bit laid back and low key now. Unless you get me going on a topic, then I'm a loudmouth, foul mouth. And that's what you'll hear on the podcast. The podcast is still going to exist in its form, in its true native fashion on Apple Music, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. The audio format where we go almost completely unhinged will always be there. But I wanted to do something different with a YouTube channel. I wanted to start a YouTube channel when the podcast launched, but I just didn't think it was something I wanted to fully, I didn't want to bite that Half Moon cookie. I didn't want to, and I'm not even sure why. I think because it felt a little more punk rock in a sense to just be completely unhinged and do whatever on an audio format. And obviously there's jokes and things that maybe don't come across the best if you're not with your group of friends that always bust balls and things like that. But it's I think that a YouTube channel is for what we've done with the podcast, the Sight and Sound podcast. Again, horror movies is the life's blood of what we've talked about. But we've also done the Action Movie Syndicate, which is me and a few friends, and the consummate co-host Eric Tyler has done, and Lou and Charlie. We're the Action Movie Syndicate, where we post episodes and we'll go on a run for a month where we'll cover action movies and like just specific action movies. So it's also like love for 80s comedies, the great 80s comedies, Fast Times and Bachelor Party and Private School and the wild bonker comedies that you don't really get anymore. Comedy's kind of dead, but we've always said, like, why is horror so big? Horror, as far as fandom goes, there's not drama conventions. Meryl Streep isn't signing at a drama convention, even to even higher degree. Like, he's done more drama. He has done some horror. He's done some non-dramas, but he's really a dramatic actor since the early 90s, since Philadelphia. And I'm talking about Tom Hanks. He's done one of our classics. It's going to be in the bumper for the show is a line from The Burbs. I'm sure you'll hear it. And there aren't drama conventions. So horror is so like fan driven, more so than any other genre, more so than even action or the 80s comedies that I've been talking about, and sci-fi. Sci-fi, obviously, they could go probably neck and neck when you get into like the Star Wars camp and stuff. I'm not a Star Wars guy, nothing against it, wasn't my bag. All good. Horror, on the other hand, is the lifeblood of what I've been talking about, and my friends and I have been talking about, recorded and non-recorded, the last 10 years, and then the 10 years we were a podcast, still a podcast, and then the life before that, growing up, it was everything. So I'm excited to bring videos and anecdotes, maybe some, I've been going to horror conventions for 15 years or so. I have amazing stories that we've shared on the podcast, but again, with YouTube, you can get a bigger audience. And I think these stories are super relevant and fun, but also just hearing the dynamic and just stories and feelings and on certain films and stuff that maybe don't get enough attention. We hear endlessly about Halloween. We hear endlessly about, Texas Chainsaw Massacre and nothing against those. They're literally like a lot of those movies are foundational. They are foundational, but does Wes Craven's Deadly Friend get enough talk? Probably not. Does Wes Craven's People Under the Stairs get enough talk? Probably some, but not enough. And that's what we're going to do, is dive into things like that. But music is huge, was a huge part of my life, is still huge part of my life. And we've done a lot of music talk on the podcast. That's going to carry over. And there's a lot of cross-threading with music and horror specifically. And music and 80s and 90s. There's so much crossover with the love for music and the love for movies for myself, my friends, and many people I watch on YouTube. I have friends that I've met through the podcast for years. Max from Ready to Retro. He and I have talked endlessly about sports and music, and we've talked and connected about music, as well as our love for film and movies and nostalgia and pop culture. So those things I think are super important. And I love the communal aspect of what the podcast has brought, and I'm hoping to just broaden that with what YouTube's going to bring. I am an offshooter. I will shoot off into a direction when I'm on the podcast. You're probably going to get that a lot on YouTube, but we're going to have fun. Another huge thing is live streaming. I'm excited to be live streaming on YouTube, and for the first, I don't know, little while, we're gonna be launching this YouTube channel. We're gonna have a lot of giveaway stuff. I have stuff I haven't hung as far as posters and prints and things like that that are movie and music related. I would love to just build the community, give some shit away, because I don't have wall space for it. I got a little space right here. I'm gonna put something there. I've reorganized my entire quote unquote studio for this. This is kind of the dungeon where the pod's been, and this is now an updated dungeon where the YouTube channel is going to reside. At least what you'll see. And yeah, I'm really excited. Join us for the ride. Join me for the ride. And it's going to be a lot of fun. If you like music, if you like horror, if you like action, if you like 80s, if you like 90s, anything like that, we get into it all, as we have on the pod. Again, the podcast is called Sight and Sound. You'll have the links everywhere and stuff. But if you want to get a glimpse into what you're going to get with this, going to try to hit a few videos every week. I don't want to overshoot and say a video every day, because I know how I am. I can get pretty busy. But yeah, content constant. And yeah, if you like movies, if you like music, it's Heartgod Media, genre, film, and music. I'm excited to start this new chapter after 9 years, finally doing the YouTube channel. So here it is, and let's get into it. Let's have some fun. Actually, I shouldn't say that. Not some fun. Let's have a lot of fun. Okay?
I'll be right back.